This is episode number 375. Oh, it's episode number 7 of this show. My apologies there. This is sponsored by ServerPress Maker's Desktop Server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out over at serverpress.com. I ran the wrong intro. I made 2 intros last night, and it was really late. And I was up just like everyone else was up, refreshing our browsers and checking out to see, did the map color change or not, and it didn't. And so, yeah.
The only winners right now are the software developers who develop those screens that let the guys update the states to red and blue. I want that.
They're winning.
I seriously, I want that contract. So,
Steve, it's all Flash.
If you're listening right now,
they totally are. Yeah,
they're just using Flash, dude. You could definitely do it. It's just Flash.
It's not.
We have to introduce ourselves today because we actually have people who need introducing on the show today. We're not just flying by the seat of our pants. I mean, we are, but we're not totally.
Start us off, Say.
My name is Say Reed, and I make WordPress, teach WordPress, preach WordPress at Say Reed Media on all the things.
Steve, how about you?
I am Steve Zehngut. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive, and I run the OC WordPress meetup. Allegedly.
Mr. Cosper.
You did it.
Hey, everybody. Y'all know who it is. It's your boy, Jason Cosper, a.k.a. Fat Mullenweg. Happy to be here today. Let's talk React.
I thought you were going to say reality. I really thought that.
No,
let's not talk about that.
Our friends over at Frontity, can you introduce yourselves real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I'm Michal Czaaplinski, and I'm a senior software developer at Frontity.
And I'm Reyes, and I work in communications and marketing at Frontity as well.
Awesome. I'm Jason Tucker, and I do this show as I also do another show. It's a social media marketing show. We just did that earlier today. Feel free to go take a look at that. We had our friend Adam Silver on the show, and talking about public speaking and public speaking online.
Nice.
It should be private speaking.
Friend of the show.
But hey. Friends of the show.
Public speaking online has gotten a little odd. The last WordCamp I spoke at, it's just you're talking to a camera and there's no feedback from the audience. It's become weird. But whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's not a 2-minute environment. Anyway, call back. But what we should do before we obviously Cosper already tipped his hat on what we're talking about, but we should probably talk about what Frontity is, since we have 2 people on to talk about it. So I would like to put that maybe to Reyes. Can you give us a little lowdown on why we why you're here? I guess you know why you're here. We're weird. Just what you do, what Frontity does.
Pitch us. Go for it.
Yeah.
Well, Frontity it's an open source framework. It's based on React for building headless WordPress sites. And I think one of the best things of Frontity is that it allows teams to leverage the editorial experience of WordPress while using React for building more modern and complex user interfaces.
More modern than PHP. More modern than
literally everything is more modern than PHP. Literally.
Oh right, yeah. Just, the modernist, the modern most. And you, how long have y'all been a thing? How you're gaining some traction. You just had
great questions today.
Great questions. I'm a little distracted by stuff, but y'all are making some moves. You just announced a deal with 10up, so it kind of feels like you came out of nowhere. But I'm assuming that's not a thing. I'm assuming you came out of somewhere. So how long have y'all been cooking up your framework?
I think the story starts in 2017.
Because early React days.
Yeah, actually, because many WordPress publishers contact us because their WordPress sites on mobile were slow. So they wanted to deliver like a better user experience, a more engaging web experience. So we started to work with them, and by then we built a mobile WordPress theme, which was based on React, and we built this theme specifically for their needs, and the results were quite good for them. I mean, they saw like an increase in performance and visitor metrics, and I think by then, at the time we were working on this this was called Frontity Pro. This theme was called Frontity Pro, and at the time we were working on this, we realized that combining WordPress and React was not really easy, and it's when we decided to turn all that expertise and knowledge and all the lessons that we learned, turn it into an open source project, and it's when Frontity framework was born, and it was this was last year in February 2019.
Oh wow! So the framework is relatively new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the open source framework, it's 1 year old. Yeah.
And Michal?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is what Reyes says true? Is React and WordPress hard to combine?
Are you trying to pit them against each other here, or what?
Yeah.
React is hard to combine.
Well, do they work poorly together? But you're making them work, obviously.
Oh yeah, so I think that's the whole selling point of Frontity, that we are trying to make it actually as easy as possible to have your front end in React, but still use WordPress as your backend.
Cool.
Yeah. What are some of the big hurdles you've run into when doing that?
When combining React and
just in making your product, what are some of the biggest hurdles technologically that you've come up against?
Some biggest hurdles technologically.
Well, I'm assuming you've covered them.
Just WordPress.
WordPress.
That was the biggest hurdle.
Yeah, so I think making an open source framework based on React that works with WordPress. Yeah, I think it can be a bit of a challenge. So to make this the modern kind of fit with the way that WordPress works.
That's the second time you guys have not said the pile of bones that is WordPress source code. Just the more modern parts.
It's good.
No, exactly. I just think it's funny because developers really focus on that a lot, and we seem to be having that conversation a lot about old software and WordPress and the struggles that it's really causing for people who are trying to build modern sites and modern applications. Was it the PHP? This is all I want to know. Is it PHP's fault?
No.
It's not PHP's fault.
It's
okay,
not.
Is it MySQL's fault? I need someone to blame.
Why are you looking for fault? They built something they were successful with.
It's been a rough week, Steve.
All right.
Anyway, go on.
I think React allows people to build some specific things that you can't do in PHP. So just that it's not a PHP fault and it's not WordPress fault.
Why don't we get away from fault for a minute? Let's talk about the benefits of using Frontity. There's a good question. So why would I use Frontity on my site?
Yeah. Do you want to take this one, Reyes, or should I go ahead?
No, go ahead, Michal.
All right. Yeah. So kind of going back to what we were mentioning earlier. So React is becoming kind of the way to build modern user interfaces. So things like doing animation, or things like having a lot of interactivity. I don't know, page transitions, are really easy and they're really nice to do with React. And combining that with the component model that React has, of course, React is not the only framework that gives you a component model, but it's one of them, and it's super nice to work with, to have your a component for your I don't know, for a modal, a component for a menu, component for whatever other reusable piece of UI you have. So to combine that, like to use React for that, it's a great experience. So we want to bring that kind of experience to the WordPress world.
And just for our go ahead. Sorry, Reyes. Go ahead.
No, just and I also think that in addition to this developer experience, there is another player, which is the marketing team or the content team, and I think it's quite important because they usually are and they are not usually mentioned. But I think it's important because Frontity allows like to keep this editorial experience of WordPress. It keeps you, it allows you to keep the same workflow, publishing workflow, and I think it's when companies, for example, contact us because they want to improve or deliver a better user experience, they always mention that they want to keep. They want to keep using WordPress because of this, because their marketing teams are used to this, to WordPress, to their workflow, and they just want a tool that makes really easily to create pages, edit content, and even preview content before publishing or just update it by clicking a button. So I think it's the best of worlds scenario. I mean, you have a good developer experience, but the editorial experience as well.
And that's really the Jamstack philosophy. Sorry, I didn't mean to just step on the Cosper, but that's really the Jamstack philosophy, is using the best tools for the best usage. Where in this case, you're using WordPress because it is the best CMS out there, but leaving the front end to something else. Sorry, Cosper, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's really I spent some time, even though I'm more developer leaning in my last job, I spent some time working like embedded, being the technical guy for the marketing team, and there was a lot of talk about the comfort of marketing teams with the WordPress user interface. I mean, WordPress has had how many years now to refine the publishing experience, and some people who aren't a fan of Gutenberg, that's fine. But for the most part, we've had all of this time to refine our user experience, to refine the way that that we publish posts, and that really having that part and having something that people can be comfortable with, but letting the developers kind of nerd out on something like React is, and being able to load things quickly and all of that is, it's nice. You let the you guys remember the I'm sure that at least the Californians on the podcast will remember this. Remember back in the day, McDonald's had the McDLT where they kept the cool side cool and the hot side hot.
Right.
Yeah. They made a burger where the lettuce and tomato were on one side and the burger and the cheese and everything else were on the other, and then you put them together before you ate them. That's what this is. You keep the hot side hot, you keep the cold side cold.
That's an amazing analogy.
Such a fun analogy.
Oh, wow.
I like that one.
This is going to be a talk. I know that Cosper's going to do this as a talk at some point.
You should do that as a talk.
Cosper.
You could expand on that analogy. I want to talk about ketchup.
Cosper could do a TED talk on the McDLT.
Yeah.
You mentioned Gutenberg there real quick.
I was
Are
just
we on the same page?
Question. Yeah, go ahead.
No. Well, I mean, maybe it's not the same question. Maybe mine's just the totally messed up version of your question.
Probably.
That's happened before.
All the time.
But I just was curious as to that experience with Gutenberg. Reyes, you mentioned the marketer experience with the CMS. Obviously, there was a huge amount of backlash and uproar about that changing, the editor changing with the Gutenberg shift. What was the experience dealing with Gutenberg? I'm assuming, based on your timeline, that you were just building for Gutenberg. You didn't necessarily build for the classic editor, or is that something you struggled with in terms of integrating Gutenberg? Was that a challenge, Michal or Reyes?
Yeah, so I think the answer here is that we didn't build neither for Gutenberg nor for the classic editor specifically. So Frontity is of course compatible with both, so you can edit your content whichever way you like. And yeah, we're perfectly
Editor
compatible
neutral.
with Gutenberg. We've actually, sorry.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
just saying
yeah,
it's
so we're not-
editor neutral. You just like it doesn't even matter.
So absolutely. So the content is in Frontity is taken from the REST API in WordPress. So anything that you can access through the WordPress REST API can be accessed in Frontity.
So it doesn't even matter. People can be Gutenberg fans or classic fans.
We've actually built our website, our frontity.org website with Gutenberg, and it's still work in progress, but we're working on a way to make working with Gutenberg and Frontity as smooth as possible. Mario from our team actually has a talk where he talks a bit about that, and I don't remember which conference that was actually.
WordCamp Los Angeles, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The one that just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that you had 2 speakers there. That's very rare. And Steve spoke there as well on Headless WordPress. So this is really like the future of WordPress. I mean,
It's a thing.
it's a thing. No matter which head you put on top of the Headless WordPress, whether it's a Gatsby head or a React head, it is definitely, the Headless WordPress as a whole is definitely
Yeah, it's happening.
it's happening.
Yeah, this is the site using 2020 that's using Frontity as the front end for it. Looks really
I
nice.
actually clicked through there. It was so fast. I thought the page wasn't changing. Like if you click the categories, I was like, wait, did that? And I was like, oh, it did it. Like it was like nothing happened. It like, look at that. Whew.
Yeah,
Whoa, schmack, that's fast. Like
that's really fast.
I mean, it is obviously this is not like a super content heavy demo, but like nothing even happens. It just like switches.
Yeah.
That's fast. Like that's the fastest I've ever seen, to be honest. So props.
And just to comment on something Zehngut said, you know, it's not necessarily that headless WordPress is the way of the future. Jamstack is the way of the future. I mean, this is really the future of web development, and WordPress is just one component of that, right? Frontity brings a few components together to create a whole Jamstack stack, right? And that's essentially what they're doing.
A Jamstack stack.
Yeah, Jamstack stack. But they're taking sort of the best of a few tools and combining them to make a platform. And that's really that really is the Jamstack methodology.
How about
That's exciting.
the CSS? How about the CSS part of Gutenberg? How are you navigating those? Having that CSS get imported, or even working with the CSS?
Yeah, great question. So the CSS from Gutenberg, I can tell you the approach that we did, for example, from frontity.org. The CSS from Gutenberg had to be imported into the Frontity application. So you have so you had to export it and put it in your Frontity application. In the future, as one of the things that we have on our roadmap, we're gonna give you a Frontity plugin. There's not going to be a WordPress plugin, rather like a Frontity package. So it's going to be an npm package that you can just install, and it will give you the Gutenberg CSS, and you don't have to do anything else, and you can create your React components that will use that CSS.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the easier you make that, the better, obviously. So you won't even have to do any importing. So then it would remain up to date and consistent automatically with that package happening, no matter what updates happened in Gutenberg or on the WordPress side, core code wise.
Yeah. So, well, the Gutenberg package would have to be updated, but this can
right,
be
but you
done
wouldn't have to do that manually.
Yeah.
It would be more like you're not.
Yeah, through your build.
Go get my CSS and then paste it in or something. Yeah,
exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
That's great. What is so is it just React? Because React is like, why the bet on React specifically? Just because that's what people were wanting to build in? Like, what led to that? I mean, what led to that marriage?
I think, well, a couple of things. So React is, by the way, not trying to like discredit any other framework. So I think Vue or Svelte or whatever other JS frameworks, I think they're just as good, and you can accomplish, you can solve any problems you can solve with React with all those other frameworks. But I think React has the developer, what's the word? Well, it has a lot of hype. Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Community.
Excitement.
Community. It has a huge community, and it has almost
backing
like
by Facebook.
Sorry, backing
I said
Facebook.
backing by Facebook.
Yeah, that's maybe not that important, I'd say. But yeah, back in the days, jQuery had plugins for everything. Nowadays, there are React packages for almost anything. So
absolutely,
most problems that you will face, you are just like an npm install away from a package that you can integrate into your application. And it's very much the same as in the WordPress ecosystem, where you just install a plugin, you configure it, and bam, you have 301 redirections, or you have any number of other features in your application.
Yeah, I was gonna touch on that. I really think that one of the reasons that WordPress has succeeded and continued to grow its market share, like we're approaching 40% of websites like on the internet built with WordPress. That's insane. But it's because of the plugins. It's because of the developer community and the user community. Same thing with React. I mean, it's not approaching 40% of the internet unless your internet is Facebook, and then you're using a lot of React day to day. But I mean, otherwise, like React, because it has the developer community there, because you can find like there's the quote inside of the WordPress community for a while has been like, there's a plugin for that, kind of like Apple's there's an app for that. Same thing with React. There's a plugin for React for, there's, you can get that going very quickly in most cases. I did have a question about, so I know with Jamstack, which I know Steve is very bullish on, that tends to lean on GraphQL. I know that Frontity just uses the REST API, right? There's no additional plugin to install there, which I actually find to be nice. I like the GraphQL plugin. I use the GraphQL plugin, but it's nice that there's not like an additional, okay, now I got to install and configure this thing. Like,
yeah,
that is a very nice benefit there. Is there a reason why you decided to go that route instead of leaning on GraphQL?
Yeah, of course. So I think the approach of using GraphQL for getting your data out of WordPress or any other source, I think It has been popularized a lot by Gatsby, who's using this approach to gather data from a backend. But in our use case, there would be no benefit to using GraphQL. So GraphQL really, in essence, is just a spec for describing the data that you want to get from some location in your application, and you can just as well do that with a REST API without the additional complication. And once you have your data in your application, in your front end, it doesn't matter how you got it in there. And this is actually where Frontity kind of shines, you can say, because we're quite an opinionated framework. So we provide you with a state management solution, which has all the data that you've requested from your WordPress, and it's without going too much into all the technical details, it's based on reactive programming principles, where you can say, oh, I want this particular component to be aware of the state, and if the state changes, this component will re-render. And we're trying to make it as easy as possible to do just that.
That's great. It's like truly dynamic site, headless. Like it's like pure dynamicism. I can't say that word.
Yeah.
Super dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. For very dynamic sites, that's exactly right. That this approach really shines. So
yeah, on the 10 up. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring a brief example. For example, we were mentioning the U.S. elections. So, for example, you have a very dynamic site.
Were we mentioning those?
I think
Sorry,
so.
Just kidding. Not traumatizing.
If you have a site where you want to update with the live results of with the map of all the vote counts, and we want to update it every 15 seconds. You want to have to go with a very dynamic approach where you can do that. And
just for the record, I found myself hitting refresh even though the sites I was on were dynamically updating themselves.
Well, 7 seconds isn't fast enough.
15 seconds is not okay. I'm just doing it every 3 seconds. So we got to get that time up. Yeah, exactly.
But I think that's great for really complicated sites, because a really complicated site, having React do those updates for you is going to allow for those complications to kind of stay in place on the page, and allow for things to dynamically change that only need to be changed, and everything else just kind of sits there. So I think that's something that WordPress itself would greatly benefit from, when we're so used to having full page loads happen every single time we're making any changes to the page. So that's very welcomed, and obviously requires lots of JavaScript to make happen, but it's a great thing.
I mean, I think you can really just even see that on the demo, the 2020 demo. Like, it's just that flawless changing, because it's only the thing that changes that moves, like it's everything else is just. So that's why it looks neat also. Like it has a visual appeal when it loads like that, because it doesn't like flash the page or even, reload all those elements. It just shifts. And it's kind of, I don't know, it is visually, it's visually pleasing, I think, the effect that it actually ends up having when you are actually using the site. Yeah, I used to that was when Ajax first came out. Like, it was really exciting about how it would it was like, ooh, look at that, it just moved, it just changed. So I get that same feeling from looking at that. It's really about how I feel emotionally about the technology. That's obviously what matters.
Sounds that way. Wow.
Well,
is there anything? I guess we're done.
we're done.
Damn. I had more questions.
Sorry. Well, if you have one last question, go for it.
I just wanted to wonder what we could look forward to. What's kind of next on your roadmap that's like kind of the next big thing that you're gonna put out there that we can get excited about?
I think the embed mode, Michal, right, is a huge thing. Is one of the.
So we're currently we're actually currently using it on our website, and there is also another big publisher that is already using it. But the idea is that you can run Frontity in a so-called embedded mode, which means that you essentially don't need a separate domain for your Frontity application and for your WordPress. Everything runs on the same domain, so it gives you a seamless experience, including post previews for a seamless editing experience. So you can click the preview button in WordPress, and it gives you a preview of your Frontity application, of your Frontity theme, including the changes that you did as a content editor.
You don't even notice that you are using Frontity. I mean, we are using it actually in our blog, and it's great because you click to preview the content and you don't even notice that it's
that's really important.
Yeah,
that's great.
It's great.
Preserving that, that's really exciting. Ooh, I'm glad we asked that.
Yeah. Well,
now I'm excited. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you very much for both of you for being on the show with us. We really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Here's our outro.
Yeah, thank you for inviting.
Sorry. Go check us out over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPwatercooler. These fine folks were able to sponsor us over there. Thank you very much. Hit the little subscribe button. Click the bell to be notified when we go live, as we just did. And also, if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can do that as well. Go over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, any other great places that you listen to podcasts, including Spotify.